Hey everybody, welcome back to the next episode of Thriving on Mission. As always, we're here at City Church and with the producer Quinn. Say what's up, Quinn.
What up?
So we're thankful that they're here and they're being part of this, and super excited about today's episode because we've got a special guest today. So without further ado, I just want to introduce our guest. With me today is Andre Anson. Goes by Dre. Hey, Dre, how you doing?
How you doing, Matt? How you doing?
Good, man. Yeah, glad to have you here. And again, just like we were talking about before, I'm super excited from the time that you and I reconnected a few months ago and got to sit down and talk about each other's stories. And, you know, it's impactful to me. It's encouraging to me. And so that's why I want to have you here. And I also know, too, that a lot of people are excited you're here as well.
Yes.
You know.
We were just talking about a buddy of mine that had been kind of bothersome a little bit about whether or not we were going to be live and whether or not he can watch in. That's my buddy Sam. He's a pretty good young man.
Awesome. Yeah. So big shout out to Sam for that. And, you know, and again, I know that you have something of incredible value in your story to share in multiple levels with multiple different groups of people and genre, and so with that, let's sort of get started. And
okay.
So you, where'd you grow up? How about that?
I was born and raised in Queens, New York, Jamaica, Queens.
Okay.
Fairly basic, lifestyle. School, and I was a kid who found his way in the wrong places sometimes. I was a little mischievous, I was a little curious as a kid. But that level of curiosity was something that my uncle saw as I started to grow into my adolescence. And instead of watching me get caught up in, the New York City street life, he put a wrench in my hands. And we started working on his Chevys, and he had a Chevy van and a Corvette, and he had done some monster garage stuff, and that led me later on into turning wrenches for the Army. Okay. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So did you always know you were going to go in the Army?
No. It was, I made a decision to try to go to college, and that just didn't work out so well for me financially. I saw a means in trying to go into the service, and kind of shopped around between the branches, but I really wanted to do something different. And when I went to the Army, I had a really nice recruiter who pulled me to the side and saw that, I was a pretty sharp kid. He said, "Hey, you have a certain background, you know how to turn wrenches on a car. Why don't you try on a plane?" And he happened to be a former Black Hawk guy, former Huey guy turned Black Hawk guy.
Okay.
And he asked me if I wanted to fly. And I said, "I don't know, but I want the option." And he told me the two airframes, and he showed me what a Chinook was. I had no clue. And once I saw what it was, and I saw the two, tandem rotors, I didn't know what they were at the time. I didn't know the terminology. I just wanted to know how it worked. And so I said, I want that job. Whatever gets me in that bird, I want to do that job. And so that is my introduction. I went to basic training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Yep. Then up to Eustis, right?
Yeah, up to Eustis from there. Mm-hmm. And then my first duty station was in South Korea.
Okay.
Camp Humphreys.
Gotcha.
So, and that's where the beginning of what would become my Night Stalker life.
Yeah.
That's where it started.
Yeah. That was my first assignment too out of flight school. It was Korea. A few years difference, but so that was 2000.
4 is when I went in. 5 is when I made it to Korea.
Okay.
That once again is where everything started. There happened to be a former Night Stalker who was there at the time.
Yeah.
And we were kind of privy to some of the news that was going on during that time frame.
Yeah.
That was the summer of Turban 3-3. Mm-hmm. And it impacted all the way around the world. We felt it in Korea.
Yeah.
And so it was only maybe 2 or 3 months after that I ended up already on orders to go to actually second bat.
Okay.
And I I kind of made a stink. I cussed and I fussed with the recruiter, and I told him that I wanted to be in Georgia. I had some family in the vicinity, and he finally got me to third bat, and that's how I got started.
Awesome.
So,
awesome. Yeah, so some of the listeners might not know, but, 2nd Battalion, the Chinooks, those are in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. 3rd Battalion is obviously here in Savannah, Georgia.
Right,
and then
right.
I don't think 4th Battalion was stood up yet. Probably.
No, not yet.
So,
not
but
yet.
they're out now in Fort Lewis, Washington. So you came straight to, so you went from Korea to Savannah.
Direct.
Okay, cool. And right into the maintenance platoon?
Right to training. Actually, I didn't even make it to maintenance yet. I went right to training,
So you went to the BMQ course right away?
No, I went to Green Platoon, but I was old school.
Okay, gotcha.
I didn't go to BMQ course. I was actually old school.
Gotcha. So you went through the RL progression in the aircraft at Savannah.
Every day.
Yeah.
All day. Flying with the greats.
So, and that, I'm going to toot your horn, whether you want it or not. But again, that wasn't a common occurrence to take people, because you had a year of experience crewing, which, that's not a lot of experience, but it's some. But most of the time they would put people in the maintenance company for a little bit, right?
Well, I was in maintenance for a few months. I just, when I came to the unit, I hit the ground running. Mm-hmm. There was no stop time. I came right from Korea. I went right to the battalion coming in, and went right to 3rd Battalion. They sent me training. And then before you knew it, 6 months later, I was in maintenance. I was in maintenance for maybe a few more months.
Yeah. And
then we had the other incident.
Yep. In 2006. Yeah.
And I was just coming back from some training maybe a few days before. And I actually was sitting in barracks. I had no clue what was happening outside the room.
Wow.
And I actually got a phone call from my uncle. He heard it on the news.
Yeah.
What was happening, called me all the way from New York, and was worried that it, may have been something to do with me.
Yeah.
Knowing where I was, Yeah.
And we lost 4 guys that day.
Yeah, and that started my flight career. It was almost a hot swap.
Right.
Because we lost 2 crew guys.
Right.
And we my buddy Sway and I, we filled that slot right away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we went right to flight once again, on the feet on the ground running.
Yeah.
Blaze of glory, just right to it.
Yeah.
There was never a waiting period.
Yeah. Yeah. Because even now the unit is still full bore, but especially back then, we never stopped, because at that point we were in the train up for the G models. And there was a time to get they wanted us to be back overseas beginning of 2007 with the G models. And, I tell you, just reflecting upon, that was July 1st. No, I'm sorry, June 1st.
June. Ooh, Lord. Somebody's going to be so mad at us for not getting this date right.
Dude. Well, that's what happens when you get older.
When you have so many dates, too.
Yeah. Yeah. I've talked about that before.
Oh, man.
I think it was June 1st. I think it was June
1st.
2006. When we lost the aircraft, and the miracle that came out of that, though, with Jimmy.
Oh, man.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, man. What a guy, huh?
And again, that would be a story for another day, but truly a miracle that he's alive.
Absolutely. Oh, man.
So first combat deployment was 2007?
Yes. I was part of that push. Went right over.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a different introduction to combat than most.
Okay.
I was only in theater for maybe a week.
Uh-huh.
And had an unfortunate incident with my grandfather that was passing away back home, and I went back to handle that. And then as soon as I came back from that, once again, feet on the ground running, I went right into my first combat mission. There was no dwell time. There was no, buffering, waiting for it to go.
You get off the C-17.
Right onto the
get
bird.
Get your gear, get on the bird.
Right to the mission.
Yeah.
And actually earned one of my first awards during that combat mission. It was just that sketchy.
Yeah.
But that was part of what we did. You know what I mean? That's kind of what makes it such an awesome burden to carry, if you will.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's a pretty cool burden to carry, if you will.
Yeah. It's something that, and again, you and I have talked a little bit about it, but there's that feeling that there's pride, and there should be, I think, because it's the chosen profession that we did. But, those memories. And again, it's indescribable. I think the listeners that have experienced it, they'll understand.
Yeah.
And we're so thankful for that.
But I don't want it to be all solemn. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's not like we didn't enjoy ourselves in the meantime. It's
gosh.
not like the flights were not exceptional, the view, but even this moment now is a strange moment for me because I never had the opportunity to look you in the face as we did our job.
Right. You
were
always
eyes out. I was eyes out.
Right.
We heard each other's voice.
Yeah, that was it.
And you can tell in the inflection and just the pitch of the voice, what was going on, what was happening, who was talking. Those moments are special moments to me too. Those things are things I still think about.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Wow, I wonder who that was that I was on that mission with. I forgot at this point.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, you just think about the trust that is there between the front and the back. And again, for people that aren't familiar, with our aircraft, I mean, so as a crew chief in the back, you were responsible for the guns, you were responsible for the maintenance of the aircraft, and flying the missions, you were that other set of eyes.
Absolutely.
Because the aircraft's 100 feet long,
right?
Rotor to rotor, and we can't see what's back there. We can't see obstacles, the enemy,
right.
Things like that. And so, I mean, it was because of you guys that would allow us to land in a lot of the places that we landed because we just trusted you.
Yeah.
Hold you down, forward 10, down 5.
Right. That was part of the old school training that I enjoy now looking back, because they really instilled a very heavy level of confidence in you, to take care of that aircraft, to treat it like it's yours,
right,
and to understand the responsibility you have, especially in these particular positions where you have paramount control. Hey, sir, hold your down.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not meant to be disrespectful. I don't mean to disrespect anything that you've ever done in your life, but I need you to hold your down, sir.
Yeah.
I see something you may not see. I know something you may not know. And I'm hoping you can trust me in this moment, is how that goes, you know? And it was such a great learning experience and something great to see, it still works after the fact.
Yeah.
Here we are now because of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. This is so much fun doing this right now, just catching up like this. And again, you're bringing back a lot of great memories and even, because there were a lot of great ones and just the different things that we did and got to do, during our time there.
Yeah.
So 2007, 2008, still crewing, still doing the job. Married?
Never been.
Never married?
Never been. Dated.
Yeah.
On and off, most of the time the op tempo kind of negated my relationships.
Right. Yeah. Understand.
It's just how that machine works, but it wasn't until towards the summertime of 2009 that I got into a very serious relationship.
Right.
And that's kind of where we start with things being different than the normal, everyday business from 2006 on. You know what I mean? That's where life starts to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody
has those, not everybody, but I mean, there's definitely some defining moments for a lot of us in this profession. And even for people who aren't in the military, but again, this is where my heart is. I know that's where your heart is as well, and, it was, October 2009. Right?
Yeah.
Is what we're talking about here.
Yeah. And,
what was, why don't you sort of set the stage, of what was going on?
So, for me, it was just another day. This lifestyle became Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
Once we got started and once we got into a certain rhythm, it was up, you're next. Get out there, do your job, come home, train, go back, do some more.
Yeah.
Spend a little time with the family. And unbeknownst to most, I had been recovering from a car accident earlier that summer. I wasn't in tip top, but I put on the show and I did the job. Hey, look, I can suck it up. I can drive on.
Yeah.
I'll be okay. I'm not dying. I got this, you know, which is how we talk. You know, that's how we talk. You know you're in pain, but yeah, you can deal with it. And I dealt with it.
Because then your brother's going to have to pick up the slack, right?
Right.
You don't want that?
Right. And that's kind of where this starts to lead. You know, we do this deployment and it's just another day.
Yeah.
I don't know how deep into the mission stuff I can really talk, but we came in for a very sketchy landing during a medevac. We were going to pick up a guy that got injured on the, you know, on scene.
Right.
And we came into an unfamiliar landing zone, and it was dusty and it was dark, and we were on a shelf. It was like a ledge on the side of a cliff. And I was in the back of the bird, so I didn't have that paramount position, but the person that was in that position lost comm somehow.
Yeah.
I picked up the calls right before we put the bird down, and unfortunately in the dust and everything else, we kind of misjudged where the ground was.
Yeah.
And came in a little faster than we thought, and hit it a little harder than we wanted to. It shook everybody up. You know what I mean? And we limped the bird home, you know, missing gear and everything else.
Yeah.
But it kind of set a domino effect into play. And then before you knew it, we ended up putting a strain on ourselves. Our other brothers went out. They went to do their mission, and, you know, dark, dusty, you know, and they came in a lot harder than they wanted to, too.
Yeah. So that was another one of those dates that affect us. That, you know, again, I was talking with Tim, you know, that Tim Denton, and that our lives revolve so much around dates, and pretty much all of them are not good. These anniversaries that we remember. I mean, you know, and so this one, you know, we're talking about when we lost another aircraft in Afghanistan, and lost a lot of guys. Not only crew members, but, you know, customers as well.
Right.
And, you know, people that you and I were friends with, good friends with, people that we'd flown with. You know,
for me, that time got a little tough. October happens to be my birth month. And the day that we came in hot, you know, trying to do that medevac was actually my birthday.
Wow.
And so coming back from that, you know, you're a little shook up, you know, you got your nerves on, you know, on.
Yeah.
I came home and I tried to just relax.
Yeah.
So I reached out to my lady, and I got on the phone with her, and I felt something was off, and turned out that she was expecting my son, you know? So now here I am in this moment where I just came from one of the scariest nights of my life. And now I'm in one of the most joyous moments of my life.
Wow.
You can imagine the emotional roller coaster that was going on during that time.
Sure.
You know, and at the same time, there was a feeling of uselessness.
Yeah.
That even the guys that were, the rest of the guys that were a part of that crew, we started to kind of feel that way, because we know what we do. We get out there every day and we do it. It's Groundhog's Day. I joke with my friends. I say it was only Monday, you know?
Right.
You know, you didn't know what any day of the week was until it was Fridays, you know, surf and turf.
That's right. Steak and lobster.
You know what I mean? Get the steak and, you know.
Well, you couldn't have the lobster.
I couldn't have any of that stuff, but I could have the steak, you know. But, you know, it was just another day until that day.
Yeah.
And then the next few days.
Sort of a realization set in, you think?
Very much.
You know, we're not immortal.
The next few days were tough.
Yeah.
I was trying to shake off that whole feeling of understanding my mortality at that point, my ability to be hurt.
So this occurred, how many nights later was the next one?
5.
5 nights later.
5 days later.
And were you flying on the lead aircraft?
No, so we were home. We were busted.
Yeah.
We had busted the aircraft that very night.
So you were, and so that occurs and you get word. I can only imagine. I mean, I think I know, again, that feeling of helplessness, right? Because you weren't even out there with the aircraft when they recovered the remains, were you? Or were you?
Oh.
No.
No. We were back in Iraq. We were cleaning up the bird, getting everything prepped, ready to go back.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't going to fly again. It was too badly damaged.
Right.
And I went and watched, you know, as everything unfolded.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where it seemed like everything was going to be okay. And I went back to my rack. I went back to my bed.
Right.
And I said, I'm going to lay down, because once again, no one knew I was still hurting from the car accident.
Right.
You know,
Right.
This was some of the stuff that was going on that night when we did the medevac. I was hurting trying to lift this guy and do my job. And,
Yeah.
you know.
So you were watching some of the mission go down
before I went to the rack, and so
Right,
everything was
right.
going mission
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah, because there was a
Everything
lot of
usual.
times we could do that. We could go and watch Predator or whatever feed they had up, and so we could see live what was going on with the mission. We had the
Right.
radio calls and
Right. And so everything seemed mission
Yeah.
normal. And it was like,
Groundhog Day.
okay, it's another Monday.
yeah,
I'm going to go back and I'm going to go lay down. Let me know if anything changes. And then out of nowhere, I get a boot to my bunk. Hey, get up. You know, stuff just went bad. And from that point forward, everything is slow motion for me.
yeah,
Everything is super second by second for me. Everything just slowed down. And I remember walking into the office and looking across the room and seeing the camera, the feed, and just beelining it, just locking in. I didn't break at all, no matter how many people were moving around. And that place was buzzing.
I'm sure.
You know, that place was buzzing. And it was just like, move. I can't believe this is happening. And I just, right to the screen, and I sat there and I just watched helplessly, you know, as everything unfolded. And it was the most painful thing I had ever gone through in my whole life.
yeah,
And I think there's quite a few families out there that agree,
yeah.
because you watch that every year now. You know, I think it's been 11 years now, and you watch it every year. You know, the birthdays,
Yeah.
you know, the anniversary day, you know, people peek out and they let it be known, hey, I feel it. You know, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
You know, I'm probably the loudest one, but I'm not the only one. But it was a painful day.
Yeah.
You know, and it made a difference for me at that point then, because I could look back and see some of the supervisors from in the beginning of my time in task force, where they were mentally after 3-3. It all of a sudden just
Made sense.
made sense.
Yeah.
Just like that. You know, and it was a mystery for the next, you know, several hours, just trying to not ask for an update. You want to know, but you don't want to know. You trying to, you know, give the family the room to, you know, get the information like they're supposed to. And, you know, there's protocols for those things. And we're just trying to abide by that, but we're there live. You know, the stuff was happening live. You know, and at the same time, you know, as much as you try to stay away from what's going on in politics, you know, I'm sitting there watching this feed. I'm a part of this. It's live. And at the very same time, there's a television to my left, and it has the local, you know, stuff that we watch here, and it's not telling the same story.
Yeah.
And boy, is that boiling inside of me. You know what I mean? And it's just the rest of that trip for me was a blur. But when you ask other people, they'll tell you I was in a daze. I was gone. I had the 1,000-yard stare. I had the full blown, I'm gone.
Yeah.
I lost my best friend in that.
Yeah.
The part that people don't understand is when I first got to that unit, one of the first people I ever befriended was my buddy Sway.
Yeah.
And we were, you know, we practically did everything together. You know, it just happened that way. We went to BNOC together, you know, for training. We went to most of our, you know, our training for the unit together. You know, most of our deployments we were on together. That deployment we were on together. We were supposed to be progressing together, you know, and I felt empty after that, knowing that he was gone, you know, and even the other guys, people don't recognize how tight knit we are. We know each other by first names. You know, we know each other's families. You know, our kids hang out sometimes or whatever. You know, we make it a big thing to have that knowledge and that understanding of one another. It helps with what we do on our, you know,
definitely
our day to day. It hurts when you have to sit and watch the other side of this.
Yeah, without a doubt.
The children,
yep.
The widows,
yep.
You know,
parents,
the parents,
siblings. It's just, yeah.
You know,
and yeah. Wow. Glad you're here again. You know, just thankful that you're, you know, and here. And I think, man, it's just so important, I think, for these stories to be told about these heroes, you know, doing what they were doing, Groundhog Day. And, you know, and sometimes things just line up the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, so I think, you know, and again, you came back from that trip. Did the ball stop rolling?
For me, it did.
Yeah.
For me, it did. Mm-hmm. Mentally, I was done.
Right.
Right. I luckily for me, I had people around me who knew.
Yeah.
They knew better. They've seen it before. You know, they were some of the ones who fared better after moments like 3-3 and such. And I took it upon myself to almost gracefully bow out.
Yeah.
I was at the end of my initial contract. I had maybe 6 months left. And I was at that point of, do I re-enlist or, you know, do I go?
Yeah.
And I made the decision to re-enlist, but to leave the unit.
Right.
And that is how I get to, you know, my buddy Sam. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And there's no shame in that whatsoever, you know, none whatsoever. I mean, I think all of us had questioned, you know, that same question. You know, we've asked that same thing before, you know, and again, how much longer
on one side of it.
Right, right.
But once you're on the other side of it and you look, you go, yeah, it's not so bad.
Right.
It's not so bad.
Yeah.
But coming out of it, yes, there was a deep feeling of shame initially, or, you know, I'm letting the guys down, or, hey, I'm not carrying my weight. But that was also a part of the reason why I felt it was best for me to go. My head wasn't in the game anymore. Yeah. You know, I didn't want to fly. I lost my want to fly.
Understand.
You know, it took a lot for me to even get up in the air. I was very nervous. A lot of people don't know that. I have a terrible fear of heights. Yeah. Thousands of hours flying, I have a terrible fear of heights. Yeah. You know, but I was also the guy who challenged every one of his fears. Yeah. You know, I couldn't swim when I first came to the unit. I challenged my fear. I got over it. You know, now I'm out there and I'm doing overwater missions. Right. You know what I mean? I was afraid to get up in a tree. I'm dangling my feet off of the ramp. You know what I mean? Right. Like this is what I mean. Like, it's not all just, you know, tears and, you know, sad stories. There are moments where I'm dangling at 3,000 feet and my feet are in the wind. Yeah. And this is the most exhilarating feeling in my entire life. You know what I mean? I'm hanging out on the side of the helicopter watching these guys just, you know, and I'm directing and I'm a part of the show, and it's amazing to know, especially looking back, wow, I did that. Yeah. I really did that.
Miniguns are pretty sexy too.
Oh, don't even start me on that stuff, man.
Yeah. Those things are so much fun.
Oh, man.
I only got to shoot them once, but oh my gosh.
But once again, there's a difference in our roles.
Yeah. Right.
You know,
exactly.
Those are the other parts of what troubles me now. I had to be that guy in that door, in that window with that weapon system. Yeah. You know what I mean? There was a certain level of responsibility in that. Right. You carry it differently than people expect you to. Sure. You know, especially when you do it every day. Yeah. You carry it differently. You know how we go in. It's hot. Right. It's everything that everyone wants it to be, the stories that people want to tell, the movies that people want to make. That's our day to day. Yeah. And when you're sitting back in something like that and you're in that after it's done, you know, the morality, you know, the quiet moments, it starts to stir. your conscience gets to you sometimes. You know, you wonder certain things, you feel certain ways, you battle with certain feelings and situations in your head. That's something that I've had to deal with a lot over the last 10 years.
Sure. Understandable.
You know, just having to have that level of responsibility back there.
Yeah.
You know, I'm back there with Doc. You never know what's going to come in that bird.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no telling.
Yeah.
You know, and when it's all done, I'm the guy that has to also keep it all clean and get it ready for the next day.
Yep.
No one hangs around for that part.
Yeah.
That's a dirty job.
Yeah.
And somebody has to do it.
Yep. Yeah.
You know.
So you ended up going to 10th Mountain, right?
10th Mountain was,
or is it
was more for the WTU portion of my time, but I went to the New York National Guard.
That's right. Yep. And you guys got mobilized eventually.
Yes, that
and
was
you
in
deployed
2012.
Again.
Yes. So I transitioned out after 2009 to National Guard, and they picked me back up for the rotation in 2012.
Okay. So you're back in Afghanistan.
Back in Afghanistan.
This time, big army. You know,
so much of a different beast. Now this is like going from driving a Lamborghini to driving, a Beetle,
right?
Almost, not really, but just, steam gauge is a whole different world in there. We're not doing the same kind of mission said.
It's an important mission.
Different. Yes.
Right. But it's just different. We'll
just totally different.
Resource differently.
Totally different.
Yeah.
And I had a hard time with that transition.
Sure. Yeah.
I was used to being gun-ho.
Yeah.
I'm used to being hard charging. It wasn't to that same degree.
Right.
But we still had our own difficulties there.
Yeah.
Just the same. This is how my buddy comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
He happened to be a new crew chief.
Yep.
And now we're overseas, and we go into a meeting, the whole lot of us. And there's a difference of words between myself and a fellow pilot from the unit. And the idea was that there was a question of how we're supposed to deal with being engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a difference of opinion. And I stood on what I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And I stood on what was safe for the crew. I'll respond accordingly to the threat. But as we know, I'm in the back. I handle the stuff back here. Mm-hmm. I handle the weapon systems in the doorway. That's ultimately our responsibility, sir. Not to step on your toes, but hold you down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
and a caveat with that too.
Yeah.
The last thing I always told my crew members during the crew brief, or if just an opportunity arose and we were talking about rules of engagement or things like that, I said, the last thing I want to hear is, sir, we're getting shot at or we're taking fire. Can I return fire? That's the last thing I wanted to hear. The only thing I wanted to hear was, if it's an evasive maneuver, brake left, brake right. And then I just want to hear those miniguns
sing, duet.
Yeah. Because there's not enough time at that point.
And that was exactly what the conversation was.
Yeah.
Hey, sir, I don't have time to stop what I'm doing with this particular individual who's engaging me, to discuss it with you, to then turn around and make a decision.
Right.
In that time, something bad can really happen.
Yeah.
If anything, I'll take full responsibility for whatever actions happen between myself and my crew. And then, whatever actions, it falls on me.
Yeah.
I'll take the blame.
Yeah.
But in the process of having this conversation, I also made it very abundantly clear to this guy, if you're going to respond like that, I don't want to fly with you.
Yeah. Because
you're going to put people in danger. And certainly enough, just a few days later, they go out to do a mission. They are given the opportunity to perform like we do.
Mm-hmm.
And they decide that, that hothead Dre, no, he gets to sit this one out. And I was okay with that. But I wasn't prepared for what would happen next. Yeah. And it put a level of pain on myself with that, because I was sitting in the maintenance office waiting for word about what was happening with the mission. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden the platoon sergeant comes in and says everything went bad.
Yeah.
And immediately right back to 2009.
Right.
I'm thinking the worst of the worst. I've been here before. I've done this before. This is now going to be the same story.
What do you want to do at that point? I mean, what's the emotion?
the roller coaster. You're up, you're down, you don't know how to feel. You're still waiting on word. We're back to that.
Right.
You know,
are they alive?
Are they alive? Who is alive? What, you know,
right.
those questions.
Yeah.
And the way the platoon sergeant, you know, gave the report, he said the names first and then said everyone was okay. And that set me off.
But still, yeah.
You know, like, come on, man. Like, people have been here before. We've lost people before. You can start with that part.
Start with everybody's okay.
One of those guys happened to be Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Sam was on left gun.
Yeah.
And when they crashed, they rolled the aircraft.
Okay.
And Sam got tossed into the companionway. And he hasn't been okay since. His body is all beat up from getting tossed around that helicopter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And psychologically, like, just imagine the man crashed and walked away.
I know.
You know, we
that.
know, right? We know it's not he was a new guy.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even think he had 80 hours or something like that. He had very few hours. Yeah. You know what I mean? He was that brand spanking new. And this is what he was going through now for the last 8 years. You know, and he reached out to me just a few weeks ago and he was saying how he was struggling with some things. And that's what made me say I really need to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's
with Red Tape Warrior.
Yes.
And which we will talk about here in a moment.
Yeah. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
You know, take your time.
You know,
I'm just glad that we get to talk about this way.
Right.
It's very peaceable this way.
Yeah.
It has been rough for me. You know, especially in the early years, I was a puddle of mess. I couldn't keep tears out of my face.
How bad did it get?
Really bad. Extremely bad.
Yeah.
Suicidal bad.
Yeah.
Suicidal bad. 2012, during that deployment, when everything hit the fan with Sam and everybody else, I was toast. I couldn't take that level of responsibility on my chest anymore, on my shoulders. I couldn't bear the weight anymore.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, now we're fast forwarding through the fact that I have a relationship going on at home, you know, coming back from the 2009 deployment, I was already heavily into the bottle. It just progressed to, you know, ridiculous proportions. And that led to a very tumultuous relationship. Now, at this point, we're completely at odds and I'm watching my friends crash.
Yeah.
I couldn't take the stress anymore. You know, and so I sat in my room one day. I got away from work. Nobody knew where I was.
Here or
I was deployed.
Deployed in Afghanistan.
I was in Afghanistan. I got away from work. I wasn't on the schedule. Nobody knew I was around. They didn't know my whereabouts. And I snuck back to my room and I just sat in my room and I cried. I cried for hours. And then I finally I kind of made the decision in my head, like, this is what I'm going to do. I don't want to have to go back and face these things. I don't want to have to ever talk to anyone about these things. I don't know how I would ever be able to cope. And I took out my service pistol. I put it between my teeth and I made my last call out. Like, God, if you are really real right now in this moment where I am, you'll do something, because I've had it. You said you wouldn't give me any more than I can bear, and I'm telling you, this is unbearable. I cannot do this. And then just then, and you have to imagine the surprise. No way. And I sat there in disbelief. There's nobody at that door. You're hearing things. I heard it again. I said, okay, all right. And I put my service pistol away. Right then and there, I said, in my head, I heard that whole, if I knock, will you answer? If I knock, will you answer? That kind of. And so I answered the door, and it happened to be a pilot from my National Guard unit. And I don't know what made him want to go and check up and see where I was. For whatever reason, he was looking for me. And when he found me, he could see clearly in my face that I wasn't okay. And at that point, the decision was made to, you know, send me home. It was time. Clearly, I was fried. I had had my last. And that's when we get to Fort Drum and, you know, the mayhem that happens there. You know, they just.
Yeah, with the warrior transition unit.
Yeah, the stories are there. People know those stories.
Right.
You know, they're unfortunate. I went through it. It hurt. It was a painful moment, you know, but on this side of it now, once again, you know, I'm now speaking out loud and letting folks know, hey, you know, these things have occurred. Folks like us are doing better, you know, give us the opportunity to live our lives, you know, peaceably. Yeah. We already have enough of a burden on our necks, you know.
Wow. You know, whenever I hear stories like this and it's hard and I've never been to that point. Thankful, you know, and to hear your story, I'm, you know, and I told you this before, I'm so glad you're here. Like right now, in the fact that there was that interruption, that God heard your prayer.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, your life is so precious and, you know, and I mean, every life is, you know, yeah. Wow. So I don't even know where to go from there. And I think even when we talked before, you know, it's that, go ahead.
Well, once again, I like that we're talking about these things, but I don't want to make it seem so discouraging.
Sure.
You know, yes, the moments are hard.
So what came, well then let me say, because I think I know where you're going to go with this.
Yeah.
So I'll sort of prompt with a question.
Sure.
You know, you brought something with you today.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. What's that?
This specific Bible.
Okay.
You know, when they make that joke, the judge threw the book at me. This is the book.
Okay.
This is the actual book.
Uh-huh.
What got me away from the negativity that I was succumbing to with everything that was going on around me was my dog. After everything went awry with the family, we parted ways. I was left by myself in a big house with no more kids to hear the pitter patter of their little feet or anything going on, you know. And I was looking for something. I didn't know what. And, you know, God has a sense of humor. Somebody said, why don't you try a dog, get a service dog. I couldn't afford a full-fledged service dog. And someone was selling a pit bull. A neighbor friend of mine was selling a pit bull. I purchased a pit bull and had no clue. Here's where the sense of humor is. I had no clue that this dog was deaf. She was born deaf. Okay. And I'm at a time and a point in my life where I'm not dealing with my troubles well, you know, but here I have this wonderful little pup. She's 9 weeks old, and I have her in her kennel. I'm falling asleep in the living room on the couch, and she's just whimpering. And I had no clue that she was just trying to figure out where I was. I turn around and put her on my chest. We go to sleep. That started a pattern. Before I knew it, I couldn't go anywhere without this dog following me everywhere. I mean, everywhere. I went to the corner store. She found her way, weaseled out the fence, found her way down the street. She had to be by my side. But I had these moments where I was just enraged, bothered by the decisions that were made, things that were going on during, you know, the course of my career. And I found myself shouting. And this dog couldn't hear a word I would say. And she would just look at me like I was a fool, yelling and screaming at her because she couldn't hear anything. And I had no clue. So after a few weeks of this roughness between, you know, her and I finally took her to the vet and found out, oh, she's deaf. Okay, you have to do a whole lot of other things so much different now that you know there's a difference here, a difficulty here. And it started to help me to understand my own difficulties, my own issues that I was going through. And from that point on, she and I became an inseparable pair. We started working together. With her deafness, it gave me the opportunity to kind of work on where I was personally. I started to learn sign language. I was doing hand gestures with the dog. I didn't have to speak anymore, you know, and so she just became my outlet. I would talk to my dog and tell her my secrets. Right. That was my therapy. Yeah. She was deaf, you know, she's not going to repeat it anyway, you know, but she was also a really good companion for me when I went places and did things to just continue that feeling and that sense of the brotherhood that I didn't have anymore. I'm in New York. I'm away from everybody again. I'm no longer in the service anymore. I was missing that, you know?
Yeah.
So, long story short, I ended up having to move down to northern Georgia. And I ran into a particular individual who happens to wear a gun and a badge every day, but he was not too kind about the type of dog that Penelope was.
Right.
She was a pit bull. He had no clue that we had worked for years on end, you know, daily on different routines and different things that she was doing to help me and I was doing as far as training her up to, you know, be a full-fledged service dog. You know, I'd gone to different facilities with her. Everyone was always so impressed with how well behaved she was despite her, you know, deficiencies. And unfortunately, he took the dog and it turned into a big thing. And the judge was wondering why I was so feisty. He didn't know that I was a Night Stalker. He didn't know I was very adamant about, you know, my dog and how law should be. You know, this guy
Judge
was abusing law.
Court. You're
full-fledged court. I'm state court, Georgia State Court.
Gotcha.
This is, you know, this whole thing went that far up.
Yep.
But the judge was very kind to me because several times during the course of this guy harassing me and giving me false charges and such, other people would ask questions. And there was an officer one day as I was pulled over for a ticket that wasn't real. This guy, you know, fraudulently came up with this information that became this ticket, this warrant. And so this officer is processing me for what he thinks is a legitimate situation. And we're going by the book. Yes, sir. Here's my information. Here's this. Here's this. He says, you will be under arrest. You have this open warrant. I didn't argue with the man. I'm probably going to have to see the judge anyway. No worries. So the man puts me in the cuffs. No problem. Puts me in the back of the car. No problem. And then a partner pulls up. And when the partner pulls up, he looks over at the computer. He talks to the guy. He's pointing at the computer and he's fussing with the guy. And I'm watching this from the backseat of the squad car. And then all of a sudden the partner comes over to the car, opens up the back door, looks at me in the face and says, "Hello, Night Stalker." I never met this man a day in my life. He knew about my stuff from my paperwork on my license,
right?
Which is how he verified that something was amiss, that somebody's really messing with this guy because everything else with his paperwork is fine. This doesn't make any sense. But he afforded me the ability to go and stand before the judge. The judge, just a few mornings prior, had me on his mind. And he was bothered by my situation. And he happened to pass by a church. And that church was doing coffee and prayer. And he drove up and he got to the head pastor and he said, "Listen, I really need to talk to you. I really need you to pray for a young man that is coming to see me. I'm very worried about his situation." And he says, "Certainly." And the judge says, "I want you to pray for this young man. His name is Neville Andre Anson." And the pastor goes, "I know that young man. He comes to my church." So then he gives him this Bible. And the judge hands this to me in court and tells me, "Go out there and go do something with yourself. Make those people around you, those people that you fought with, those people that you served, make them proud. All of those people, make them proud." And so that's what I've been doing lately is I've created this thing called Red Tape Warrior. I'm now speaking out, advocating for the vets, letting folks know some of the troubles that these folks have and that they're not dangerous people for no reason. We've been trained that way, but you don't need to treat us like we're criminals. You know, you don't need to necessarily, you know, rough everybody up. You know, some of us just have a hard way about some of the things we've had to see and do as a part of our career. You know, and that's where we get back to Sam, who, you know, reached out after going through a very tough time of his own. He didn't know who to talk to. He's having these hard days and nights. He's going through these hard times. These are the things that I speak about now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These are the people that I speak up for now. And you've given me a great platform today to really have those voices heard. And so even more so, I do the 22 a day. You know, that's part of what's on the back of this shirt. And it's not just a tip of the hat to the suicides every day, but also to our guys.
Yeah.
Because that bird, that call sign was 2-2.
Yeah.
Arcane 2-2.
Arcane 2-2.
So I know that the numbers have changed statistically.
Right. Sure.
But I'm keeping the 2-2 as a tip of the hat to, you know, all of those guys from Arcane.
Yeah. Wow. It's awesome. Thankful for that judge. Still keep in contact with him at all, or just sort of
not really. But I have been able to now go forward, and instead of being in the jail system on the wrong side, you know, regardless of the circumstances that brought me there, now I'm in the jail.
Yeah.
Going to mentor and talk to folks. You know, I was just recently at the Chatham County Jail here in Savannah, and I was afforded the opportunity to speak to the vets that are a part of the vets program that's there. And that is something that they're doing to help the vets instead of just chastising them about what they're going through. Yeah. They're really trying to give them the real help, even in jail. Awesome. You committed the crime, you have to do the time, but it doesn't mean that you just have to stand there and kind of waste away. We can give you some tools to really allow you to progress as you step out. And then, you know, the whole idea is for that to still kind of trickle down to the general population. You know what I mean? And give people an opportunity to really have a second chance in life. You know, we made mistakes, we do the things we do, we live life, you know, stuff happens. You know, but I met like a flight medic in there. He had a hard time. I know why. You're on the back of my bird. I know what you saw. I saw it too. I know what you dealt with. My hands were in it with you. I helped. You know what I mean? I know your troubles. Come talk. Yeah. Let's get this off your chest. You know what I mean? And if you're receptive and if you're open, let's talk even more. Right. Yeah. This is something that I chew on. This is something that works for me. It doesn't work for everybody, but this works for me. Yeah. You know, so awesome. I offer it to those who are open. And if not, so be it. Yeah. You know, still love you. Still talk. Right. Yeah, exactly. We can still embrace. We can still, you know. Yeah. So, you know, a couple of weeks ago, and the reason I wanted to get, you know, you on this episode this week is because you came to my mind because, I mean, it was something we talked about already, you know, hey, let's get you on Thriving on Mission. And just because, you know, to hear your story and to hear what you're doing and be an advocate for you as you're an advocate for others. But specifically, you know, you came up because I was thinking about what's been in the news here in Georgia. Right. I mean, we are a national, international news headline for what has occurred or what came out, I guess, really, just a couple weeks ago with the video from down in Glencoe County with Ahmaud Arbery, you know, and just that whole thing. And you know, and we could have a long discussion, you know, about that case. And I don't think, you know, that's the time or the place. But you came to my mind because, you know, the story that you were relating, and I think, you know, you left out a couple things, but, you know, for the most part, you know, when you were pulled over that day in this town up in North Georgia, there was some racial profiling going on, is what, you know, and you know, because you talked about how you were in the car and you know, and I thought about that for a moment. And you know, and again, you and I have both great respect for law enforcement, and we've got friends that have gone into that profession from the military, you know, but it's still a thing, racism. Yeah. And, you know, and I thought about you because I know you personally, Dre, and when I don't know other hardships that you've gone through, but you and I share a common bond that is inseparable. And so for that, I care about you and I love you as my brother, both brother in arms and brother in Christ. But, you know,
could something similar happen to you? Could it happen to you now? Could it have happened to you? You know,
it definitely did happen. This is what this story about my dog is all about.
Yeah.
You know, a police officer abusing their power and taking advantage of someone that they thought at the time was less fortunate.
Right.
Not recognizing, once again, I'm a different breed of individual.
Right.
You
Right.
know, I was trained a certain way. I'm doing my best to blend back in with society and not be, but it's still a part of me.
Sure.
You know, and unfortunately that became a part of the issue. When we speak, we're very direct. We look each other in the eye. You know, we speak with a very solid tone. We're very much about inflection, especially being on the back of the helicopter. These are things that people don't understand. You know, I spend a lot of time reading lips because there's a constant ringing in my ear. We all know that we get that being on the back of those birds for hours on end, listening to the APU run for 7 hours while we loiter, and, you know, all these different things that happen. I have I'm hard of hearing. It's no trouble for most people most days, but for this particular day, it became a thing. You know, and this particular officer just took it to another level, and I gave every excuse that I could in the book. I tried my best to not play the race card, and it was just abundantly clear to the point where other people were like, hey, this is not right. This is really just, this guy really has a problem. I was dragged.
Yeah.
I was chased by 14 cops and then dragged by 5 of them, arrested for no crime at all, and had my dog taken from me. You know, because of this guy's, you know, ignorance.
Yeah.
It started from a very poor set of circumstances from other people's ignorance. You know, when people joke around about what's going on in society now, everybody's so touchy about this Karen name, you know, but these are the kinds of people that I was having to interact with. Oh, he's outside, he's got this dangerous dog. Lady, why are you calling the cops on me about this dog? You have no idea that this dog is a service dog. You have no idea what her service is for me. Nobody's making this stuff up here.
Yeah.
Sitting now in front of someone like yourself, it's like, look, I got the dog because I couldn't deal with my issues. You have a full understanding as to why, and you know very many others of us who have those same troubles. We don't all deal with them the same way. I chose not to dive in the bottle anymore.
Yeah.
I chose to walk my dog instead. You know what I mean? I chose not to smoke 17 packs of cigarettes a day. I chose to go outside and try to run with my dog instead.
Yeah.
You know, and with the climate of what's happening now, it put me in a place where I could no longer be quiet. I had to get involved. And so I get involved not only with the NAACP itself, but I'm also now the chaplain over at Richmond Hills VFW Post 7331.
Awesome.
I really speak up with these injustices that are going on around me. I'm not so concerned about myself with this stuff anymore. Now I'm just trying to do the best that I can to protect a few of the others, you know, as best I can with the resources that I have available to me. You know what I mean? I can't stand by anymore. I can't just watch. I won't armchair quarterback it. I have to get in this.
Yeah.
You know.
And I just think, you know, for a lot of people who are listening and a lot of people that we served with, at least I didn't see it. And again, you can speak differently because, I mean, you were a minority in the 160th, without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of people of color.
Right.
You know, aviation is that way. Army aviation is that way in general, you know?
Yeah.
And then, but within the 160th, and again, I don't know why, but, you know, at least from everything I saw, I hope, you know, especially within the flight crews, that didn't exist, you know, that there wasn't racism.
That's not true either.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
You don't know how many times I've gone out to my bird and had to undo nooses in the blade ropes. You know what I mean? And sometimes there were jokes, and they were jokes. Don't get me wrong. There were situations where it was a joke. You let certain things ride. Cool. But not with the nooses.
Yeah.
That's not a joke to me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? There are certain terms and situations that were occurring those things weren't jokes to me. And the parties who were involved in those particular situations, they know.
Mm-hmm.
They know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm at a crossroad. Part of me is battling with a difficult decision. Do you openly discuss those things?
Right.
Do you kind of stick with your code, if you will, your, you know, whatever we had with that,
yeah,
you know, and just, that was then, this is now. But there were times,
yeah,
and tearful moments going out to undo nooses on my blade ropes, on my bird. Not a happy camper with that kind of stuff. It's an honest situation.
Yeah.
It really bothered me. You know, there was an explosive situation that most people know about from the unit, at least. We went on a trip. It was early on in my career, and made a stink between myself and, you know, another NCO, because I was asked to wear chains around my neck. Now, his idea was, you didn't lock up certain things a certain way, you should remember to lock those things up, but that wasn't the case. Everything was done according to the rules, the regulations, according to the way we do business. There was nothing wrong here. Mm-hmm. So what was I being punished for to begin with?
Yeah.
And then now you ask me to put these chains around my neck?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Mm-hmm. And I raised Cain about that, and it created a mess that I thought would not be such a thing. I thought I would not have to discuss it 15 years later.
Yeah.
You know, but now we're talking about a young man who, you know, is gone today for no real crime.
Yeah.
Or at least not at the moment from what we see, but is it truly justifiable? You know what I mean? We're really starting to get tired of having to ask these questions. The man at least deserved his day in court.
Yeah. Amen.
You know, and I know we like to say that we're the best of the best of the best of the best, but we have our own troubles too. Mm-hmm. I've definitely had moments where I've had to respond in a manner that is less than becoming because of some of the things that I've had to encounter and endure.
Yeah.
In the unit. That was another thing that made it a little easier to step away.
Sure.
Because then there was no more pressure with that. But it was still there even with the National Guard.
Yeah.
You know, I ended up with an Article 15 behind me trying to suppress my anger with alcohol while in country, which is a big no-no. But I was having moments, once again, you know, those levels of conversation. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm really trying to tread light here. I don't want to trip and fall in this rabbit hole of mine, you know, but
yeah, no, man, it's
less than stellar moments have happened on that bird.
Sure. Yeah. And for what it's worth, I mean, that sucks. I never saw it, or if I did, it was just, again, not part of my world. And, you know,
but it wouldn't,
I wish, you know,
it wouldn't be.
Yeah, right. Because there were still two separate worlds, pilots versus crew dogs.
Right.
You know, I mean, there was a blending, but then also there was a definite difference in how life worked.
Yes.
And it's just what it is. I mean, because ultimately, I mean, you know, we were there to do a job and a mission, and just like, you know, Rangers have a very specific personality, culture.
Right.
And it needs to be that way because they are so good at what they do.
And this is what I mean, once again, with trying to stay away from being so solemn.
Yeah, right.
You know, there are those moments when it's time to go. Listen, we work hard.
Yeah.
We work hard. And when it's time to play, we play. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've definitely had my fair share of great moments as well, to include, you know, spending a lot of time with like, I think we've discussed it before, my mentor.
Yeah.
You know, he was another big influence, and he was a big influence spiritually.
Who was your mentor?
Big Ed.
Big Ed.
Big Ed.
Eddie White.
Yeah.
A lot of people who listen to this
man.
podcast are going to go, yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Can't forget Eddie.
Hearing his name like that is just.
Yeah. What year did he pass?
Oh.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
It's been 3 years, going on 4 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody. So.
Yeah, he was someone that really helped me to stay out of trouble. I've been talking about this on my own private stuff, YouTube and such. He was a great influence as far as trying to be a better, quiet professional.
Right.
He was a great night stalker, but he was also a great person overall, outside of work.
Yeah.
Definitely kept me outside of the normal business that goes on in the barracks, you know.
Because he would invite you over for
dinner,
maybe church sometimes, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Different, Bible studies and such, and different programs, and he helped to,
and you'd be around his family then.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah. As he was mentoring you, and and I think about that, and just like what little you've talked a little about Sam, who I've never met, but he's reached out to you.
Yeah.
And so I think some of what Eddie has instilled upon you, you are now taking to the task and using that to help others.
Very much. There was a crew guy that I greatly respect. One of the guys that trained me up. He told me the day that we went to Big Ed's funeral, he said, you have a real light about you right now. Mm-hmm. And I used to joke with Ed. Ed was going through some things just before he passed, and we had an opportunity to speak, and we used to joke around, and he knew things were going south.
Yeah.
And I used to joke with him, hey, maybe I can, get this and, remember you. And the one thing that I think that I could have ever received from him that would mean a whole lot to me would not be anything physical. It would not be anything material. It would be whatever light he had, because he had a special little something. The way that he was able to do what he did within the unit was amazing.
Yeah.
You could tell the impact based on what everyone had to say during his funeral.
He was a man of influence.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah.
And that's another big piece of why I'm where I am today, and why I feel like this is now almost my baton to pick up.
Sure.
And say, hey, until it's my turn, I got you.
It's worthy.
I got your 6.
It's worthy.
I after being a survivor of your own hands, you know what I mean? Suicidality, you look at that dynamic different. When you're on this side of it, it's, oh, you're weak, you're a coward, you're this, you get the name calling, you get the stigmas. But when you've gone through it yourself and you get to the other side of it and look, you see it totally different.
Yeah.
You do see it as a cry for help. And now you understand why they're crying for help, what the cry is for, and that's something that Sam did for me. And he really helped me to kickstart something that I had on my heart to do. And now it's become a major thing, which is the 22 minutes for the 22 vets who commit suicide.
On August 22nd?
On August 22nd.
Yeah, so just for the people who are, what we're talking about, I'm going to plug it for you.
Okay.
But you are organizing August 22nd at 222.
Correct.
At Arlington National Cemetery.
Correct.
An opportunity for people to come and spend 22 minutes in prayer, in silence, to recognize those that have gone before us.
Correct.
Those that are still struggling.
Correct.
And even if you can't get there, there's still going to be other opportunities for people to be involved with that, right?
Correct. Here in the Savannah area, I'm proposing that we go to the Glenville Veterans Memorial Cemetery. The idea is to try to do as many of these gatherings as we can locally.
Yeah.
For those who won't make such a long trip. You know, I don't expect anyone from California to come to Arlington. You know what I mean? Some may.
Yeah.
But if you're not so inclined, or you have, you know, some sort of something that just, you know, becomes a hurdle, you know, I'm proposing that we do it locally in as many states as possible. And the idea is to just do a silent gathering, silent reflection.
Yeah.
You know, and hopefully just kind of win the hearts and minds of our own people.
Yeah. Yeah. Just grassroots. There's not a lot of logistics involved with this. It's awesome.
And I'm trying to set up for a group of us to ride up from Savannah.
Gotcha.
To Arlington, just to be there. And I want to be a part of that ride.
Yeah. So
I recently purchased a motorcycle, and I'm, you know, doing all of the training and all of the necessary things I need to be fairly well, you know, capable, you know, fairly capable enough to make that ride. And I will hopefully be meeting Sam up there, and, you know, maybe a few other folks, and we'll get to stand, you know, as close as we possibly can. You know, I know everyone is so, you know.
Well, hopefully by August we can.
And if not, then let's listen. We know how to do formations and, you know, double arm intervals and such. I think that's enough space, you know, but the point is to stand together. Yeah. You know, we really need to make a real impact on this veteran suicide stuff before it's already out of hand. We've lost more than most wars that we've fought. Yeah. Just in suicide, you know, it's got to stop. Awesome. And some of it is this racial stuff. Some of it is rights being stepped on. Yeah. Some of it is, you know, the insensitivity that people have about, you know, what some of us go through. Yeah.
Well, as more information comes out about that, please share it with me. I will share it on future episodes as well, and we can get that word out between both of us and other avenues that we have. But man, it has been great having you here today, Dre.
It's been a blessing. It's been an honor.
You know, bring up a lot of, like I said, I mean, my heart both aches and it overflows with joy as we sit and talk about some of these things, just like, you know, when I do it with other brothers in arms that I've been with before. Yeah.
So. And I was so excited to come on this show once I saw that Tim was on. Yeah. What was that, episode 2?
2, I think. Yeah, 2. He's
3.
Been on a couple now.
Yeah. So. But it was so inspiring to see. Once again, I don't see you guys face to face often. Right. I hear the voice. And so it was funny because when you did the podcast, I put the phone down. I just listened I'm used to listening to the voice. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I didn't even look. I just listened, you know, but it was great to hear even some of that information. And that's stuff that I can also open up to some of our other brothers who are, you know, hurting in the meantime, some of the things that were discussed then. Yeah. But it was such an honor to, you know, follow after, you know, some of you great folks, you know, that came before me.
Well, there's great ones that came before me too, as we all know.
We know. You know, that's what we say, right?
The unit's been built in blood, unfortunately. But, yeah. You know, how can people reach out to you if they want to? If they want to contact Dre?
Red Tape Warrior. Okay. You can practically find me anywhere. I am buzzing everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, everything except Snapchat. Okay. VFW in Richmond Hill. And I'm also the post chaplain at the VFW Richmond Hill Post 7331.
The NAACP here in Savannah.
And the Savannah chapter of the NAACP. Awesome. I've also kind of poked my nose around with some of the other local, you know, folks. I've bothered, you know, some of the politicians in the area as well, kind of letting them know that this is something that we're doing. Awesome. You know, going forward.
Great. Cool. Anything else you want to just wrap up with? Anything you want to say to the viewers, listeners?
I just want them to understand that I am a Night Stalker and I will not quit this. This is a must. I will probably die doing this, but I just want it to be known for those that see, that know that I am definitely very passionate about us looking after us like we used to. Yeah. That stuff can still continue. You know, it doesn't have to go away because we hung up the uniform. It doesn't have to go away because we don't polish the boots anymore. We can still look after each other. We can still give a shout. We can still just give that hand up, not the hand out. to get everybody back on their feet, you know? So, and there's more to come. There's so many, things in my bag of tricks here, but this is the beginning. This is the introduction. This is, step one.
Awesome.
So I thank you for this opportunity greatly.
NSDQ.
NSDQ.
All right, man. So, hey, just glad to have you here with us today. Thanks again to Quinn and City Church, and for all the listeners to Thriving on Mission. You can catch us Facebook, YouTube, I think Twitter, and just hope everybody enjoyed it. So until next week, catch you then.